All right, Dave. It wasn't pretty. 9 first downs, barely had the football. It was very much, I guess this is my takeaway with the Steelers. So this is an organization that Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. I mean, it doesn't even make sense in the NFL. They're all about loyalty and continuity. How many years does Matt Canada get the OC job? They can't get the O-line right. They can't run the football. I mean, I just look at this and I think to myself, yeah, they'll win 8 or 9 games. They'll finish above 500. I just look around this league at the Dolphins and the Niners and Philadelphia and some of these clever offenses. And coach, this is a tough way to make a living. I think there's a ceiling to Steelers football, what I see. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I offensively, it is. It's tough to watch. And we know that Kenny Pickett, in my opinion, and I'm a little bit partial because he's a Pitt guy, and I'm a Pitt guy, Colin, but the guy didn't have much of a chance. And the minute that you see your quarterback running for his life like he did, my first instinct is we got to slow that down. And how do you slow it down? You run the football. And with 3 minutes to go into the third quarter, the Pittsburgh Steelers had 12 yards rushing.
I know it.
I mean that I can't comprehend that. I mean, you could go up and take a knee, 15 times at that point in the game and make more than 12 yards. I mean, it really makes no sense. And at the end of last year, and I go back to Art Rooney, who's a friend, he made the statement. Mike Tomlin has, but at the end of last year, check it out. Art Rooney, the owner, said, we will run the football next year. We're not going to put up with what we did this year. We're going to get back to Steeler football. And here we are, and nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Thank God for that defense. Thank God for playing at home. Unfortunate injury with Nick Chubb. I mean, he's their lifeline. He was averaging 6 yards a carry before he got hurt tonight. So yeah. I think he would have made a difference. But yeah, Kenny Pickett right now, I think he's really as concerned about the rush as he is sitting back and reading the coverage. He doesn't look. He truly looks like his focus isn't on reading 1, 2, 3. What's the coverage? It's where's the rush coming from, and do I have to scramble? Do I have to get the ball out? It's tough for a quarterback to operate under those circumstances.
A lot of young quarterbacks struggling. Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett have defensive head coaches. This is not a shot at them, but I do think there's a sensibility and a language offensive coaches speak. And I feel like, defensive coaches, they're not going to be quite as creative. They're not going to be quite as risk-taking. And frankly, a lot of offensive coaches played quarterback. They were offensive players. And is it a fair criticism to say Pittsburgh's a defensive culture? And unless they get a young that's its culture, is toughness and physicality. And I just look at it and I think, that's not doing Kenny Pickett. Same thing for New England, coach. Mac Jones had a defensive coordinator calling plays last year. Is that a fair criticism?
Well, I think to some degree it is. The problem that you have in Pittsburgh is that tomorrow it's going to be the terrible Towels did it again in the defense, and they go on to the next week. I mean, it's nothing going to change. You know what's crazy? You talk about, and we're going to get into the Dolphins in a minute. When we do, I want to bring up a point to you about defensive head coaches because we're having to do with San Diego when they played the Dolphins in that first game. Yeah. But yeah, back to Pittsburgh. I don't see it changing. I really don't. That's their identity. That's who they are. If they face a team that doesn't have the pass rush with Desarius Smith and Myles Garrett, like Cleveland is really good on defense, then Kenny Pickett will have a good game and he'll throw for 3 touchdowns. But against a quality pass rush defense, nothing will change.
Let's pivot to Chicago, where you spend a great deal of your time. I came into the season and I said, I think I'm kind of 55-45, 60-40. Justin Fields will work. I thought DJ Moore was a huge get for them, and he's been kind of their receiving core. But Dave, I just don't think he sees the field well. He reminds me a lot of Zach Wilson. He's got a good arm, he moves well, and he just doesn't anticipate the play. I think Justin Fields, I watched him on a lot of different views, almost like drone footage or behind him, there's wide open guys everywhere. He has time on certain
Yeah.
plays. Do you think in the, this, the GM and the head coach can say, we didn't draft him. He's not our guy. And next year there's 6 to 7 first-round quarterbacks. The Bears could have 2 top 6 or 7 picks. Coach, I think it's really hard if he ends up, he's 5-22. If he goes 7-10, 6-11, they're not sticking with him in Chicago. There's no way.
No, they have 2 number 1 picks next year, as we know. Theirs and the Panthers with the trade. Right. Carolina. So they're gonna be they could have 2 10 top picks. Maybe 2 top 5. Who knows the way this thing's unraveling. But the whole plan here, and I'm close to all those guys, Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus. I'm up there all the time, OTAs, training camp. And the blueprint was the Philadelphia Eagles. 2 years ago, people were uncertain of Jalen Hurts. That's when they went and got A.J. Brown. That's when they kind of changed their philosophy and they buried down. It's going to be a quarterback quarterback run pass option offense that Jalen Hurts can execute to a high level. Well, the difference is, so they go out and they get DJ Brown here. Absolutely outstanding. The problem is Philadelphia Eagles got one of the best offensive lines, and last year they led the NFL in sacks. The Bears can't, but the strong safety was the leading sacker for the Bears last year. And you saw them against Baker Mayfield. Even when they got in there, their defense couldn't get Baker on the ground. They make no plays on defense now. So my point is this, that Justin Fields, yes, he did have time. He held the ball for once I was timing him over 3 seconds. One time it was 4 seconds. One time 5 seconds. And he's trying to be not a running quarterback. Last year he leads the league in rushing, Colin, and there was an outcry. We can't win a Super Bowl that way. He's got to throw it. And I'm afraid to say, I think Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, fell into the same trap as Justin did. Okay, they had one quarterback run in the opening game. It was a quarterback sneak. That was it. That was the only call. And they were averaging about 10 or 12 a game last year. I thought it was too many, but they were moving the ball and the offense was generating a rhythm. That's all gone. In this game, the opening drive, the second week against Tampa, they have the run pass option on the rollout. Justin keeps it, runs it in. DJ Moore was open for a pass across the middle. Never saw it again. They go back to the drop back. They're kind of running. Luke Getsy came from Green Bay, and it almost looks like a Green Bay Packer type of offense. And we can't do that. They've got to abandon that, their only chance, and go back to the quarterback run option, and hope that their defense gets better. Otherwise, this kid's got no chance.
Football is officially back. No more preseason games. The regular season is here. Listen, we all like watching football on TV, but nothing's better live and in person. And the best way to get tickets to any of these games is at Game Time, the fastest growing ticket app in the entire United States. For last-minute amazing deals on tickets to see your favorite football team in September, download Game Time. And it's not just for football. Baseball playoff games, comedy shows, concerts all across the country. Download the Game Time app and use the redeem code COLIN, COLIN, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Get out and have some fun this weekend, baby. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. Game Time. For a limited time, you can save up to 40% off on an NFL Plus Premium annual subscription when you sign up through Plus Play from Verizon. Plus Play. It is a platform where you can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions you already love, like NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, You get access to live games on mobile, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, and more. So you can watch multiple games all at once on any screen around you for updates. Never miss a touchdown. That simple. And for fantasy players, NFL Plus Premium makes all the difference. Access to programming like Fantasy Live through the NFL Network, Red Zone for tracking player performances on a Sunday, access to live local and primetime games, access to Fantasy Plus. Just go to verizon.com/NFL to get NFL Plus Premium today. 40% off, that's 40% off an annual subscription, just $59.99 for the full season. Get it before it's gone. Listen, we've all had fender benders in our life. Sometimes it's even more serious. But even if it's somebody else's mistake, you can lean on Morgan & Morgan. It's the nation's largest injury law firm. 100 offices and over 800 lawyers. With over $15 billion, that's $1 billion recovered, Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting for you to get full and fair compensation. Submit an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan. It's really, really easy. It's almost like a quarterback, an offensive head coach, and a GM that gets them good weapons makes their life easier. We all need somebody, good or bad days, to make our life a little easier. That's what Morgan & Morgan does. If you're ever injured, check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/Colin or dial pound LAW, that's pound 529, from your cell phone. This is a paid advertisement. Listen, it's like right now the Philadelphia Eagles are a good team that doesn't have an identity, and they won't embrace that Jalen Hurts is a power running quarterback. That's what he is. And they're trying to make, and by the way, Baltimore, to their credit, is allowing Lamar Jackson to be Lamar Jackson. Russell Wilson last year in Denver stopped running. Kyler Murray doesn't want to run. To me, it doesn't matter if it's basketball, football, or baseball. Lean into what you do. And I look at this, when I watch Justin Fields, listen, it's Zach Wilson. He's got some gifts, but he's a big, strong kid who moves well. And I mean,
you can't tackle that guy. What's happening now is he's dropping back. If he doesn't like his throw, rather than running and making something positive, DJ Moore twice was open, clapping his hands during the game, trying to get his attention to throw him the ball. Your only chance is to go back to what they did last year and turn him loose, get him on the move, and in passing situations, hope that he has improved. Now, their offensive line might be worse than last year. The draft pick is a player. Darnell Wright, the right tackle.
Yeah.
But the right guard, they're in their third right guard. Nate Davis, they signed him. He don't practice. Then he had personal reasons. I think it was a family thing. So they started a guy they drafted in the 7th round last year, never played. Lucas Patrick, the center, he didn't take one snap in the preseason. He's starting at center. The offensive line too is struggling bad. And
by the way,
so
another defensive coach, Sean McDermott, Mike Tomlin, Matt Eberflus struggling with the O-line. Do you know in week 1, 10 of the 11 top-rated O-lines were offensive coaches? Andy Reid fixed his in an offseason. Sean McVay this year fixed his in an offseason. I think we have to be honest. Defensive coaches can fix D-lines quickly. Offensive coaches can fix O-lines quickly. How many years in a row can the Bears, 2-3 years in a row, they can't get the offensive line right? And by the way, they've used a lot of draft capital and money on it. They've drafted a lot of offensive linemen.
It's their first-round pick this year, Darnell right out of Tennessee. He's going to be a player. But from there, they've got some guys that need to develop, and they've got some older guys now. It's not conducive to giving your quarterback a lot of time and having him sit back there and be able to read the field. So they can't do what they're doing now. They got to go back to the run offense, abandon this, hope their defense comes up with a few plays. We get no help from our defense in Chicago because the ball's on the ground. We didn't get it against Tampa. We had chances for interceptions. We don't get them. So the offense never gets a short field. they never get it's always drive 80 yards to score a touchdown. And that doesn't happen in the NFL.
Let's transition to Miami, which I think is as good as any team in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, they almost look like a Canadian football league with all these motions, pre-snap motions. I will say this, Miami wants winners because you have the aqua water and the beach. If you win, they care. If you don't, they're out. I worried that this team couldn't play physical football. It would be a finesse speed team. I watched them in New England, coach. They played between the tackle, run football, power football. And I was like, okay. Plus, you love Vic Fangio. Almost every defensive coach I know likes Vic Fangio. He's dialing up pressures. I got to tell you, I don't see a big hole. Sometimes I worry when a team spreads it out and they're a speed team, that's what they practice, and they can lack a they lack a physicality. Tough teams, tough practices. I worried a little bit about that with Miami, but it is San Francisco's offense, and San Francisco plays a power game, actually. So it feels like it's a bit more finesse than San Francisco's version. This Mike McDaniels and Ivy League Kyle Shanahan, it's a little more spread out, a little more motion, a little more finesse. But I was impressed with their physicality against New England. Your thoughts?
Yes. Anytime you can go shoe to shoe with the Patriots, that's saying that you're a physical football team. So they did that. The two thoughts. Number one, Tua is doing a fabulous job. When you talk about physical and running the ball, the two things that I got to see from the Dolphins, McDaniels got to stay and try to be as balanced as he can. That's tough for him to do. You got to remember back last year, Buffalo up there, playoffs. They had their third team quarterback, Skylar Thompson. The Dolphins were down to their third team, and they threw it twice as much as they ran it. They threw it 45 times. They ran it 20. And I'm thinking to myself, run the football, and you're going to beat the Buffalo Bills. You're going to beat these guys in a snowstorm up there. And for whatever reason, they didn't do it. I think that is one thing that McDaniel's got to keep going back to, trying to be balanced. As many weapons and explosive, trying to be balanced. I think, the game plan, I loved the game plan that the Chargers had. If I'm playing the Dolphins tomorrow, I'm going to do what they do, except that how do you leave Tyreek Hill, one-on-one? That was the only thing. I would have never played man. I would have played zone. But their philosophy was Herbert, they ran the ball 10 more times than Herbert passed it. Yep. And they took the air, they ran the ball on Fangio's defense for 180 some yards?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way you beat these guys. And you take the air out of the football, but you don't let the fastest guy in the world be one-on-one. That was the only thing that made no sense in this game plan. He's supposed to be a defensive guy, but I thought the big picture plan on offense was perfect. You want to beat them? That's what you do.
Yeah, you don't want to get into a track meet with Miami.
Nope.
What you want to do is you want to have, and I agreed with you completely. Brandon Staley drives me nuts. I've never seen a team give up more third and longs, but their game plan was sound. It was, we're going to run the ball, eat the clock, give them probably 2 fewer possessions, and take our chances late. That's the way to beat Miami. Nobody's going to beat them in a track meet, especially in South Florida. It's not going to happen.
No. So, I agree with you. And it's just that the coverage, you always got to stay on top of Hill, and if he curls up and catches it in front of you, then you got to come up and tackle the guy. But you can't get into a foot race with him. You just can't do it. And that's what they did. And they lose the game because of it. But I liked the game plan. I thought it was very good. And all the players bought in, and New England tried doing the same thing, but they didn't have as good players, didn't have as good receivers, didn't have as good a quarterback. So, obviously the plan wasn't effective. Almost though.
One of the things I think I've noticed in the first couple of weeks is there is a reluctance. Now we have, instead of 4 preseason games, Coach, we have 3. And there is this continued reluctance to play starters. So I think it's really hurt offensive line play. I think some of the best offenses, Kansas City's, Cincinnati's, really sputtering when you have these star quarterbacks they want to protect and not play. I wonder if we have a little bit of a move back to playing starters in the preseason. Because you know, defensively, you could probably use a little less practice. But if your O-line, if you got new starters and you don't play it all together in the preseason, you're going to be a mess in September. And I think that's one of the things I've noticed. My kind of macro view of the NFL 2 weeks in is, are we going to go back to playing starters in the preseason? I think the offenses, a lot of the better offenses in the league, have completely struggled. That's my takeaway on what I've seen. Your thoughts?
Yes, 100%. And I think Nick Sirianni from the Eagles, what was the first thing he said in his press conference? And they won the game in the opener. I will never let this happen again, what happened in the preseason. Our starters are playing next year. Write it down, because I didn't do a good job in the preseason. We were physically not ready to play. He totally agreed with them. I looked up when the Bears lost their opener to Green Bay. I looked up to see the number. Justin Fields played 11% of all the preseason snaps. And Green Bay's quarterback, Jordan Love, he played over 30%. So this kid played, more, considerable more. But Justin Fields had 11% of the snaps. Are you kidding me? This kid needs to play 80% of the snaps. He needs to play. And so does that offensive line, like you said. I definitely think that there's going to be a movement back to that, just because of the reasons that you said it, and Syria, and you hear coaches saying it already.
I want to move back to the Bears on this. I spent the weekend in Chicago. You spent a lot of time there. It's my favorite American city. I just love the architecture, the people. It's so passionate, politics and sports. It's like a nicer version of Boston, a friendlier version of Boston. Politics and sports rule the day. The GM has had some whiffs, but also had some hits. The coach has a lot of detractors, but with the draft being as strong as it is for quarterback, if there has to be a choice made, go back and you tell me the history of the Bears. Will they stick with a coach and move off the quarterback? That's my gut feeling today, that Eberflus only has 2 years. He didn't pick Fields. The GM didn't pick Fields. My guess is they're going to keep the GM and the coach. Are you backing me there? You know the history of the organization.
Yeah, I definitely think that if they make a change, it would be at quarterback, not the coach or GM. I really believe that. And I think they're sitting there with, just for the reason you said, it probably not fair to Justin, that he wasn't drafted by them. He couldn't control that. But if they make a move, I definitely believe that's the way they would go. I do think that, they got a new president of the team. I know the owner, George McCaskey. I think everybody's working well together, so there's not an internal conflict right now. So I definitely think if they do make a change, if something gets major shakeup at the end of the year, it would be the quarterback. It would not be the head coach or GM.
Yeah. Do players like Justin Fields? How is he?
They do. And he's tough. I watched that kid last year in December getting ready for the Packers with a cold. They can't win a game. The fans are booing. He gets a separated shoulder, and he walks up to the podium in a sling. And they said, "How are you going to be next week?" And he said, "How am I going to be next week? It's Packer week. I will be ready to go." And to me, that's what you needed. That's Chicago. That's Chicago right there. Knocked down shoulder. It's snowing out. It's freezing cold, but I'll be ready to go next week. So, I mean, he has the toughness. He has the commitment to be successful. Why? I don't know. If you go back to his college days, Colin, because I took a look at this. He started 2 years at Ohio State. In 2 years, he was sacked like 49 times, like 28, 29 times a year. And then he leaves and C.J. Stroud takes over, quarterback now down at Houston. And they actually threw the ball a little bit more.
Yes.
And I think he was only sacked 12 times. So this holding the ball syndrome,
yes,
or making a decision syndrome, or whatever it is, it was there in Ohio State a little bit, and I don't think anybody wants to admit it, but it was there. If you look at the numbers.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan had told people inside the building in San Francisco that he was concerned that that was his knock on Justin Fields, that he just didn't see the field and that he just held on to the ball too long. And I think that's a great nugget by you, is that they threw more with C.J. Stroud and he was sacked significantly less. Now, some of that can be personnel, but Ohio State's always had, 4 and 5 star. It's Ohio State.
They got guys as big as that door blocking guys from Northwestern that want to be doctors. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, he has time to throw the ball at Ohio State.
Okay, finally, you love the Big Ten. I love college football. Notre Dame, Ohio State this weekend. But I want to ask you about Deion Sanders. Now, Travis Hunter won't be available for Oregon or USC, and I think that'll be their undoing. I think he's such a special player. That gave them a real shot in those games. How surprised are you? Not that he drew attention, but I mean, 70% of his roster, coach, is transfer portal, and they've been pretty efficient, not heavily penalized. Now that I think, looking ahead to Oregon and off a Nebraska game that was highly emotional, I just think they were flat. You know this in college football. You don't get the same.
Sure.
They got USC and Oregon coming. They play Colorado State. They were completely flat. Are you surprised, though, at the immediacy of the efficiency? And they look like a fairly well-oiled machine offensively. Are you surprised by it?
No, because I know a couple of the coaches on the staff there, and the guy that's the offense coordinator, who was a head coach at Kent State and did a heck of a job. And he went there, and then he had a chance to go to Notre Dame a week after he took the Colorado job. Reese left Notre Dame and went to Alabama, and they hired him away from Deion and come into Notre Dame, and he stayed because he was committed, and that told me something right there that, you know what, because this guy's a heck of a coach. And I agree with you. I was waiting to see 12 men on the field, right? Guys jumping off sides, too many men on the field for a punt. Can't get the field goal team out there. They were smooth. They were as smooth as anybody. You got to give Deion credit for that. And, with this transfer portal, the one thing that happens, very few kids go into the transfer portal unless they got another place to go. Now, it might be a level below or whatever it is. So, it's not like it was when I went to school and Johnny Majors took over a Pitt. They opened the doors. He brought in almost 90 freshmen. In fact, there was a story in Sports Illustrated a month ago. That was the biggest turnaround behind what Deion did. But we had no choice. We either played and we jumped on board, or we were out and lost our scholarship. So there was no transfer portal. Where now these kids did leave. They didn't fit in, or whatever the circumstance was. I was a little I had reservations because, you kind of say, is this the right thing to do for college football? But the more, and I know Deion a little bit from the Florida State, Miami days and Dallas days. And the more that I hear Deion talk, he talks about his faith. He talks about his family, about making these guys good husbands. I mean, he talks about the right things. And then, you're going to be in a pro system. Nowadays, you know why these kids go to college? I mean, I hate to say this. When I went to Pitt my first year, I remember going back there, because the first time I was a Pitt assistant with Johnny Majors when we won national championship, kids went to school somewhere because they wanted to get a good education. And like myself, as I'm a junior now, all of a sudden, someone said, hey, you might be good enough to go to the NFL. And I said, really? I mean, no, there was no social media. No one talked about it. You just went there to try to get a degree and play football and hang out with the guys. Now, so I go into my first home. I go back to Pitt in the mid 2000s there, and I go into a home, and it was us in Notre Dame, and Charlie Weiss was at Notre Dame, and he was coming out, and I'm getting ready to go in, and I'm wearing my Pitt national championship ring, and I'm going there, and I'm talking about why you should come to Pitt and our great business school, and on and on and on, and the tradition of Pitt and Tony Dorsett and Dan Marino. And I walk out, and I said, did you see what Charlie was wearing? A Super Bowl ring. And my assistant coach said, Coach, you've been in the NFL for about 15 years. These kids, unfortunately, don't want to hear about getting this degree. They want to hear how quick you're going to make them first-round draft picks. And I took that national championship ring and put it in the drawer, and I put my Super Bowl ring on. And that was the end of it. And my point is, with the story, is that these kids nowadays, how quick can you make me a first-round draft pick? And can you get me into the NFL? And if you're running a pro system like Deion runs on offense and defense, and you have the NFL pedigree, it's attractive. It really is.
Sure.
And he's going to do well, and he's going to get great players and great talent. And I could just hear Deion in the house with the mama. You know, you're talking to someone's mother, and he'll win the mothers over in the household. I promise you that. You know, they're going to love him. They're going to love him. And no, so it's just be a matter if he'll stay at Colorado. That's the only question I got, because he's going to be successful, and he's good for college football. You know, there's so much negativity out there with obviously realignment. You know, there's so much stuff that people are complaining about. You know, I think he's just a fresh breath of fresh air. You know, I really do.